sponsored by Comcast Business. Please welcome the Chief of Police for the Detroit Police Department, James Craig, and columnist for the Detroit Free Press, Rochelle Riley.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here. Chief, President Donald Trump.
Are we going to start right with, okay.
That sound you heard was jaws clenching throughout this room. The president has pointed to Chicago many times and talked about the violence and the things that are going on there. And while I pray for Chicago and I hope that things work better, I've been so relieved that it has not been Detroit that has gathered his attention. And part of that is because Detroit crime is trending down. Yes. 302 homicides last year. That's up 4 from 2015, but still trending down from past years. And I can remember when the numbers were always close to 400. So before we talk about digital and visual innovation and some of the things that you're doing, give the audience the lay of the land on what it's like on Detroit streets right now.
Well, as you pointed out, and I'm just excited to be here. You know, Detroit is a safer city, but I say that with a lot of caution, but I also say with a lot of optimism because, you know, people stop me daily and say, you know, Chief, we're seeing change. Police officers are different. We feel safer. We walk our dogs. And all of that is true. When you talk about one homicide is truly too many. And then when we put it in another perspective, and while homicides have trended down during my tenure here, I look at my old home of Los Angeles, a city of 4 million residents and just 10,000 police officers. And their murder rate is very close to ours. And you look at a city like Chicago, half the size of Los Angeles, and they have 12,000 police officers. Here I know the bottom line is police officers matter, police officers count, and I know that we have too few police officers, you know, working here in the city of Detroit, and our academies are full. We have 200 police officers in the academy right now. We're one of the few departments across this great state that is still hiring and recruiting. And when people ask me the question, they say, well, Chief, what makes Detroit PD different? And I say what makes it different is that we create excitement. There's a lot of excitement in the Detroit Police Department. And I understand excitement because I remember in Los Angeles when Los Angeles was riding high. And then the Rodney King event took place. Morale fell of the police department. And you just couldn't hire. And then a new chief came in. And that's when the police department began to really shift. Crime started to decline. The morale went up. And that's why many times I say there's a direct correlation between police morale and reducing crime. It's just like private sector. If you look at some of the most successful firms, whether it's Microsoft, Apple, you got happy people working there. Well, it's no different in the police department. And keep in mind that our police officers are some of the lowest paid police officers when you talk about major city police departments. So I'm optimistic about the future of the city in terms of safety. You know, I get asked when I travel across this great nation, and I'm always asked about Detroit, and I'm always asked about what makes the Detroit Police Department different. And yes, that has come to the attention of the president. His staff has asked, because when you look across the country, whether Chicago or some of the other cities that are really struggling with violence, not just violence from crime, but even violent protests. You're not seeing that here in Detroit, and I always say it's not by accident. We have great community policing partnerships, and they do work. We work with the organizers of protest groups. We have one outside right now, and they generally are always peaceful because of those relationships.
Now, let me ask a quick follow, because you talk about the police morale, and this has to do with community morale, and even though the crime is down, some of the crimes that have happened have been so heinous.
Yes.
That it's been stunning. Of the 302 homicides last year, 114, almost a third of them, were the direct results of arguments.
Yes.
People literally just having an argument, and rather than, you know, sort of slapping it out or, you know, I don't know, something else you could do, you know, there's a death. What can you do about something like that? How do you combat that?
You know, when I look at the cities, and I've had the good fortune to work in a number of cities, you know, I spent most of my time in Los Angeles, certainly time in Cincinnati, and I've had an opportunity to really analyze violent crime. What's unique here is when you talk about that, 114 homicides last year, and you talk about the specific incidents. I'm talking about an uncle who murders his nephew over a plate of food, or another instance where another uncle murders his niece over something that just makes no sense. And so we started to look at the suspects in these incidents, and some of them are returning citizens. And so we thought, and we began the conversation about what we can do proactively as individuals are being integrated back into our communities, how we can start the conversation about making better decisions, almost like what we do with ceasefire. Having that conversation, talk about conflict resolution, because clearly what's different here as compared to other cities, these senseless, spontaneous, violent acts doesn't occur to the level that it occurs here. And so that's a problem. And so we are going to address it. I'm not certain yet how that should look. We think the intervention should come either as someone's being released from prison or at least just before their release so they can start making better decisions.